Welcome to the first program in a new series from FedGov Today, AI in Depth. I'm the host of FedGov Today, Francis Rose. Artificial intelligence is hitting its stride as a technology tied to use cases all across the federal government. The Federal Chief Information Officer, Clare Martorana, says AI will be a critical tool in the federal government's customer experience initiatives. The Deputy Secretary of Defense, Kathleen Hicks, says the Defense Department's AI investments are, quote, yielding returns much faster than most new defense capabilities. Virtually every federal agency has artificial intelligence projects in development or in implementation. On this program, you'll go in depth with movers from government and industry that are leading the AI charge. Leaders from the Department of Homeland Security, Housing and Urban Development, and the Department of Veterans Affairs, AWS, Palo Alto Networks, and EY are here to discuss what they're doing with AI now, what it means, and what's ahead for AI and for government-industry collaboration. We begin with Dimitri Kusnezov. He's Undersecretary for Science and Technology at the Department of Homeland Security. Dominic Delmolino is Vice President for Worldwide Public Sector Technology and Innovation at AWS. Gentlemen, welcome. It's great to see both of you. Dimitri, I start with you. What are you seeing right now, not just at DHS, but broadly across the government as far as specific use cases that people are doing with AI? Welcome.
Great question. First, great to see you again, Francis.
Thank you.
No, this is an important question. AI is on everybody's mind. It is permeating every agency. I would say there isn't a single kind of use case in government, and so where agencies gravitate varies. In a science agency, it can be very open-ended. We're a mission agency at Homeland Security, so we focus on outcomes. It's not so much about AI, it's about how can we do the job better, faster, more effortlessly, more for less. And a lot of use cases there.
The concept that you just got to is one that I think some agencies are struggling with. It's not about the AI, it's about the end, it's about the mission.
Yeah.
How do you keep folks focused on that idea at DHS to think this might be a potential application for AI rather than how do we get some AI and sprinkle it on some problem?
We try and measure return on investment. It's been an effort this year to try and see, well, what do we think it will do? What are the kind of targets? And we're seeing really a lot of remarkable things happening. You know, just an example, what took 3 years ago, 3 years for 10 people, experts in networks on bulk cash laundering to create and understand the networks and the data now takes 3 days. You know, it is night and day in many different places where smarter tools on the complex data that law enforcement gathers are yielding real things already, and it makes a difference. It doesn't go everywhere, it's not for everything, but there are places where it makes a difference, so you have to pick and choose. I
want to come back to that idea of data later in the conversation. Dom, welcome. It's great to see you again, too.
Great to be here. Thank you.
What does what Dimitri just described fit with what you're seeing as you talk to clients across government?
Yeah, one of the things Dimitri said that I think is really powerful is there's not just one use case for AI. I think a lot of people have been captured by this idea of a large-scale, general-purpose AI capability, but what we're seeing instead is those mission capabilities understanding that they can develop and use AIs that are tuned and specific for those mission purposes. We're going to get to that explosion of data, and that's made this general purpose AI kind of something that seems more readily available. But that explosion of data also means there's data that can be used for specific use cases for specific missions. And that's one of the things we're hearing more about.
All right, a little semantics thing that I picked up on there just a moment ago and before we went on the air. You used AI, plural, AIs. What's behind that? There's got to be something there.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, I think a lot of people think there's this one AI, but what we're really seeing are you can use AI that's tuned for purpose. It's good at understanding language. It's good at understanding sound. It's good at understanding pictures. It's good at understanding context or data that's specific to the mission. You want an AI that's tuned for that because it'll be much more efficient and it'll be much more able to give the good answers that you need for that specific mission purpose. So we see this collection of AI starting to really blossom.
That's what you're talking about, I guess, when you referred to
tailored use cases.
Yeah, when you're talking about law enforcement in particular. CBP, I know, is a big user of artificial intelligence technology and so on.
Yeah, with CBP, you know, we created tools for them that track all of the air and marine traffic so we can try and filter out of all of the vast amounts of data what things need to be paid attention to. And we've improved, you know, from tracking and paying attention to 500,000 a year up to 100 million now. the remarkable ramp up in the volume of what we can do with the same people without having to build out capabilities further. The tools are very enabling.
So either in the context of AI broadly or AIs in particular, to use Dom's term, what's your sense of the industry partnerships that DHS is building, and what makes a good partnership in that way?
It's first, DHS is a bit of a boutique organization. We have a lot of niche needs, and it doesn't always align well. And so we look for partners that can help and align with the outcomes that we're looking for. And so we need flexibility. Often we just can't find off-the-shelf solutions. If it would be great if we could.
Yes.
The world isn't like that. So working with partners with the private sector, using the instruments we have in small business initiatives, in Silicon Valley Innovation Program that we have, in prize competitions. We use many different instruments as well to try and cultivate the ecosystem and partnerships we require.
The prize competitions are particularly interesting to me because as a numbers person sometimes, you wind up with solutions that are probably different than you would have gotten through a traditional procurement process.
Oh yeah,
and often a lot less expensive.
Yeah, because you only formulate the kind of outcome you're looking for, the grand goal, and it's up to people's creativity and initiative. And so things can surprise you.
That concept that stuff isn't easily available off the shelf for government applications is another thing that you and I talked about a little bit before we went on the air, Dom, and that is that agencies are asking you more questions about how to build their own.
Yeah, it's a combination of both building their own and taking off-the-shelf things and tuning them for those specific use cases. The innovation pace just keeps increasing. Every day we're seeing a new AI capability introduced. And so we're really trying to see and listen to our government customers who talk about, is there a way that we can evaluate and understand whether or not this capability can be tuned for our use case, or should we go ahead and look at ways to build it ourselves, because it seems to be getting ever easier to do so. Mm-hmm. So making those decisions is really important to understand, and this gets to working backwards from the use case. What's the goal, and what's the most cost-effective and efficient way to get there using one of these AI capabilities?
What's the best way for you as an industry person to find out what the mission need really is in order to be able to do it the direction that you just described?
Yeah, I would say there's two things. The first is trying to understand, what is the test and evaluation framework going to look like? How do we make sure we can objectively demonstrate that the AI capability is doing what's needed? And then I think in addition to seeing what that is from the government point of view, having an opportunity to kind of go back and forth and shape that or understand that or add to it with what we're seeing from other industries where they're coming up with different ways to evaluate the models as well. So expanding the horizon of how something gets evaluated, I think results in a better end goal.
You were nodding your head pretty enthusiastically as Dom was describing it. Does that sound like the other side of what you need from industry when you're working with somebody?
It's that kind of flexibility that really makes a difference. It's not coming and getting a sealed proprietary product that you can't build on, that you can't pivot when the world changes, mm-hmm. and be responsive to what the country needs. And so you have to have a flexibility built in different than kind of what you get in transactional things that you buy.
I'm not going to ask you to pick on them in particular, but broadly, how is industry doing at that flexibility? That's something I know agencies have been asking for in a number of areas, not just AI, for a long time.
So, generally very good.
Yeah.
I think from my lens, in again, a large law enforcement agency, it's often tied to other things you need. So it's not just a data issue. It's not just an AI issue. It's all the environmental factors. It's the people. It's the kinds of things you're trying to accomplish. And so when you bring all that together, you need sometimes a broader sense of teaming, which is not always natural. Mm-hmm. That we don't just need you as a partner. We need a few of you as a partner to try and attack this problem. But we're finding a lot of responsive companies.
How do you make sure that you stay out of the conundrum, Dimitri, that a lot of agencies have gotten into over the years? Again, not just about AI, but it's software in general, which is we need something special, but we might not need it to be completely written from scratch for us. We may be able to modify, as Dom described, or maybe there is some solution that will work for us off the shelf, trying to avoid a customization scenario.
Customization has always been hard. I was in that business in the national security side for many years, and it can be a trap when you think you have to write your own. And the best value we've had is working with private sector companies to either launch them, work with them to create something that has a commercial pull besides just our need, but also just to see where they're going and see, could we support an add-on? Can we do some NRE with them to support something that helps them move forward, but also gives us what we want? Because at the end of the day, you need a support for the tools. You have to have a company there to update, to upgrade, to be ready with the standardization if you need for the next generation of tools. And if you don't have that, you'll end up with a dead-end technology.
Dom, are other agencies getting that idea? Do they have the message that Dimitri just put out there too?
They do. I mean, we use a term at AWS we call undifferentiated heavy lifting. And that's something we want to make sure that the agencies understand. If it's undifferentiated, if it's something that's commercially available, take advantage of it. Where's the necessary differentiation, and how do you get to that quickly, and how do you get there flexibly? And that's something we want to make sure agencies understand, that they can appreciate that something that's common can be reused, but also tuned for the specific mission use case. And so we're getting good understanding. Oftentimes going into the cost argument, we can get this done quicker, it's not going to be as expensive. So I think that's another thing that resonates really well, and it helps people say, oh, I can get to mission outcome with a much higher ROI.
That sounds like the kind of the nirvana there. We can get to mission faster.
Yeah.
Is that enough of a motivator, though, to keep people out of the thing that we've seen so many times over no, we really need to build our own. We really need to have our own thing.
Yeah, I think that speed is important. Another element is, if this isn't going to work well, we can pivot relatively easily. And so that also gives someone the flexibility to understand, okay, I can adjust as I understand more to get closer to the outcome I want. It may be at the same pace, but I've learned a lot more, and I know I've got something that's really specific and useful for my mission.
We talked about data earlier in the conversation. Mm-hmm. What's the status kind of the data quality that's coming through the various parts of DHS? I imagine the answer is it depends.
It depends, yeah.
Yeah, but overall, do you see forward progress? Do you see momentum in the data quality and obviously quantity in order to feed these AI tools well?
Yeah, and I think it's emergent. Secretary Mayorkas recently stood up the AI task force, and the data side of this and the infrastructure is part of what we're looking at. I co-chair that with our CIO, Eric Eisen. The data side is non-trivial. We're replete in data. We have so much data. You think of TSA and 5 or 6 million scans of handheld luggage every day. The volume of things we get, the diversity are excellent use cases for, what people talk about, large language models today and foundation models. And so there is how we thought about AI, so hence AIs, yesterday. The AI of today is different than it was yesterday, and how we think of data is also going to be different. And so I think looking ahead, we have work to do still. Mm-hmm. But I think there are remarkable opportunities coming out of what you can do with these foundation models and generative AI.
How you think about data is going to be different tomorrow. In what ways, Dimitri?
Because what they've demonstrated, certainly with large language models, which is just for words, but you can do it for images, for any other kind of content, in trying to understand risk in the information. You don't have to create a model for every particular application. You can stockpile, if you want, vast amounts of data, create an interpretation of that, and then just build on specific applications or use cases. If you have something new you want to do, you don't have to recreate everything. It's already there. And so how you think about the differential value of adding a new function is far simpler if you invest in the data in a structurally different way than yesterday.
Are agencies' data efforts getting better, cleaner, faster, more efficient? What are you seeing?
They are, and I think it is in result of this understanding of the power of data and getting it right, and then how I can put it to work, put it to use. And as Dimitri said, what we're seeing is this coming fusion of government data and open source or publicly available data that can then be tuned for that specific use case. And as agencies have understood that it's possible to leverage the baseline data that's out there and then tune it with that fusion with government-specific data or agency-specific data, they're really getting their house in order to say, oh, I really need to make sure I can take advantage of it in this way, so let's get it put that way so we can then take advantage of these models that are out there.
The national security and intelligence community may be the movers on that because they've been mixing open source intelligence with proprietary intelligence for a number of years now. Is that the same kind of model that we're talking about here?
Absolutely, and I think it's an understanding of the value of even data that wouldn't necessarily have risen to that level from before, but it actually is the vast volume of that's been collected for a specific use case now can be tuned and structured in a way that then becomes much more useful.
Dimitri, you've talked about some of the success stories that you've seen at DHS. Are those success stories now starting to reach critical mass where people who early on might have been hesitant or might have been disinterested in adopting these tools are saying, okay, I get it, and I really want to see what the possibilities are for me?
I think we're starting to see that. As we've been tabulating ROIs this year, as we've been trying to demonstrate the use cases, because use cases mean we've already deployed it, and so you have to go back to the development, which was some time ago, to figure out how it's being used. So there is a lag time in the system. But we do see that it is a remarkable saver of people's time when you can do far more for far less than you thought. And the only instrument you have is no longer, well, we have to staff up, we have to grow to accommodate the demand signal. When you realize, well, we can get a 50x speed up by using these tools with the same people we have.
What are the ROI markers that are most important to you and your colleagues at DHS?
It depends. So there is no simple answer to that. And I think for every activity, we have to ask ourselves, why do we need to spend another dollar in this direction? How do we determine that this is the right value against the mission? And so, for the AI projects, I look to see, is this speed up the right place where we need it, based on the short list of things that are on the nation's agenda, whether it's transnational criminal organizations or fentanyl or migration or, pick your area. There are so many places where more use of these tools can have a remarkable impact.
The quick list that I scribbled down as Dimitri was talking about potential ROI markers, Dom: time, money, mission delivery markers. Are there others that agencies are paying attention to?
I do think it's the efficiency element too. So there's, how do I empower my people to be more efficient and more capable? They're getting more things asked of them. How do I give them tools? How can AI be an assistant to help them be much more effective? So this way of augmenting efficiency of individuals and making them more efficient is another marker that we've seen that people are asking about.
Quick final thought. What does this look like, Dimitri, in your view, a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now? Or is it so hard to predict because of the way the nature of the landscape is changing?
I'd say three things. One, AI is not an endpoint. So, it's not a final solution of anything, so we are moving through it. There will be things beyond that. Second, with it comes risk, and we're trying to understand the adversarial side of this. So, there are opportunities, but we have to walk hand in hand with the limitations. But the third thing is really the remarkable opportunities are everywhere, and I'd like to see more of it, more visibility, more awareness of how we adopt these and change the way we operate in a way so that, again, it's not just a manpower need, it's a technology opportunity as well.
Dimitri Kusnezov, Dom Delmolino, it's great to see both of you again. Thanks very much for joining me today. You can read more about industry and government collaboration and what DHS S&T is doing with AI at fedgovtoday.com.